Hello, I'm Christina Anastasio with AARP New Jersey. I want to welcome you to another AARP New Jersey Fraud Friday. We're having an important discussion on fraud and scams today, and we're joined by a special guest, Karin Mueller. Karin is the columnist for the Star Ledger who covers personal finance and consumer issues and keeps us up to date on the largest scams happening right here in New Jersey. Today, we're going to focus on how you can take important steps to protect your wallet. We'll share tips and resources on how you can stay safe from fraud and scams and address your questions. And for more information, you can always visit aarp.org/njfightsfraud. We'd like to make this an interactive event today, so if you have any questions, please place them in the comments section. This is your opportunity to learn, ask questions, and get your answers. So thanks so much for joining us, Karin. We're so pleased to have you provide answers and share some tips for our viewers.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So let's start with two of the newer scams related to social media and coronavirus. First, we know that thousands of people are trying to still get through to the New Jersey Labor Department to fix problems with their unemployment claims. And scammers are using this to impersonate Labor Department employees on Facebook to steal information. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, there's several different versions of the scam that I've heard of, but the most recent one, a reader reached out to me. He was looking on some of the Facebook pages related to unemployment where people who are filing share tips and complain and explain everything that they've gone through. And one of the people on the page had put a phone number saying, "I'm a Labor Department employee, I can help you. Feel free to call me or text me." And so this gentleman who has been waiting forever to get his unemployment benefits decided to text this person who ended up being a scammer. But when he started talking, the scammer was asking related questions that a Labor Department employee might ask you, including for a claim number and other information. But then he took it a step further and started asking for his birthday, his full name, his full address, and additional information. And this person who was desperate just started giving out his information. So the scammer said, "Okay, great, I can get your benefits fixed. You'll have the money in like 48 hours. You just have to send me a $100 gift card." And that's when, of course, the reader realized that it was a scammer. Yeah. So while he didn't pay out the $100, the problem is that now some scammers got all of his private information, including his date of birth, and who knows what could end up happening to this guy.
Yeah. And we know a lot of people right now are in these online communities looking for, connection when we're all home. So, being wary of who you're talking to and who you're reaching out for. Can you give maybe some tips so people know what to look for in that scenario?
I think the first thing that you should never do is give out your private information, especially your social security number. People on Facebook may be able to click on your account and see they'll know your full name, but that in and of itself doesn't necessarily put you in danger. But you should set different privacy settings on Facebook and on any other social media. Nobody needs to know what town you live in. Yeah, I mean, if you're a friend with somebody who you know is an actual person, that's one thing. But especially when you go out on these forums, you don't know who's out there. Most of the people are just regular people like you, but there are always going to be some who look to take advantage.
And I think we know that with the frustration with a lot of these large systems like unemployment, like the stimulus checks, people are, they want answers. So, we talk about that heightened emotional state a lot when we talk about how people fall victim to these scams. So I think that's one of the ways everyone's in this, very anxious, very elevated state right now. So people are a little more willing to, maybe give out something they wouldn't regularly give.
Right. I think the pressure, especially with stimulus payments, unemployment money, it's such a hard time for people. And when you don't know where else to turn, where it seems that you can't get through to the government to get answers, you'll want to get answers from wherever you can get them. And as you are more worried, you're not necessarily always going to be thinking about the things that you would normally do to protect yourself. Absolutely. So just keep your information private.
Yeah. And I think that was a great tip about the privacy settings. I think one of the questions is where were you born? And we know that's a common security question on a lot of these forms. So making sure that you're checking your social media and those things are private.
Exactly. Same thing for, what high school you went to or any of these things that do come up as privacy questions. The information doesn't need to be out there. You can always just leave it blank.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for that, those tips, Karin. Before I get to the next question, I do want to remind our viewers that if you have a question on scams and fraud, you can just write it in the comments, and then we'll address it a little bit later in our video today. So, Karin, you've also written about face mask exemption cards, and that a scam that was spotted on social media. Can you describe that one to our viewers?
Sure. This is another one that went around on social media, started on Facebook, I believe, a group that called itself the Freedom to Breathe Agency, which doesn't exist, by the way, said that they could hand out to you face mask exemption cards so that if you went into a business and you don't want to wear a mask, we know lots of people aren't comfortable wearing masks, that you could show this card and basically be able to go without a mask. It's not a real thing. It was a fake. They took down the Facebook page, but not before this image of a card that actually had a Department of Justice seal on it. It looked pretty authentic. Started going all around social media, and it's not real. And the Justice Department is supposed to be investigating.
And we know that these scammers are innovative. Usually, we've seen pieces of mail that come and they look like it's from the Treasury Department. It looks exactly the same. They pull the logo offline. So, a lot of these things can be replicated, and you'll see it that way, and it'll look legitimate. But usually, there's like one or two things off in it to give you that tip. There's a letter missing, spelling wrong, and that'll be that kind of clue for you when you get that.
Absolutely. And especially now, we see this time and time again. Anytime there's a natural disaster, anytime there's a big something that happens in the news, and I think coronavirus is the biggest of our time, scammers will find a way to twist around the old scams and have it somehow related to what's going on in the news now, and it just makes it seem to some that it might be authentic because it's what's going on. But scammers, they know, and they just zone in and pick up whatever's going on in the news to try to find a way to trick you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Karin, this year the tax deadline has been pushed to July 15th due to coronavirus. We know that every tax season, scammers try to get personal information so that they can steal our taxpayer refunds for themselves. What should taxpayers be on the lookout right now, especially as we're quickly approaching that deadline?
Sure. Now, we are coming up to the deadline, and if you haven't yet filed your return, hopefully it's on your mind and you plan to do it. But basically, by extending this for several months, we've given scammers more time to file a tax return in your name, so that by the time you actually file, obviously the IRS is very behind in paper returns, especially, so people haven't received their refunds yet. But it's sort of too soon to know whether there's been a problem with your return or if it's just the IRS's deadlines. But so the scammers will take advantage of this, and just like pre-pandemic, during these next weeks coming up to the deadline on the 15th, you may get phone calls where somebody says, okay, this is the Treasury Department, this is the IRS, and you have overdue taxes and you need to pay it right now, otherwise we're going to come and arrest you. Or even worse, the newest one is, we're going to suspend your Social Security number. Now, for people who are receiving benefits, the idea of having your Social Security number frozen is terrifying. You're depending on this money, and they're saying you're not going to get it. Unless, of course, you pay whatever these overdue taxes are. And they'll often ask for gift cards. iTunes gift cards are, for some reason, very popular for scammers to ask for. Just hang up the phone. Do not answer the email. Do not answer the text. The IRS is not going to reach out to you that way. So if you do actually owe taxes, or if you're afraid that you might be behind, try to get in touch with the IRS. They're not going to get in touch with you in this way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, let's say that their taxes were filed before, their identity was compromised. What can they do? What can our viewers do?
Well, first, you contact the IRS and explain to them what it is that you suspect has happened, that your identity has been taken and that somebody filed a return in your name. And you can actually arrange with the IRS to get a PIN number so that when you file taxes in the future, a scammer is not going to be able to have your PIN number. So you should be able to get back on track. But if your identity has been stolen, you're going to need to contact the IRS Identity Protection Unit. And I think that we have a telephone number that we can show. And they will work with you to clear up the return that was fraudulently filed and make sure that you have that PIN number going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, there's also the FTC complaints. I know you can file for identity to the FTC, correct?
Yes, you should file complaints with the FTC, and that can be about any kind of scam, not just ones related to what we're discussing now. And while they won't necessarily address your specific complaint, they use it to look at trends of complaints. So that way they know what they should be investigating. They put together everyone's complaints, and then they're able to zone in on what they need to look at. Also, you should really, if you have any problems with your tax returns, go to the credit bureaus and consider putting a freeze on your credit, which will mean that nobody else will be able to take out a loan in your name. You will be able to unfreeze it simply if you want to then take out a loan of your own, but it will help to make sure that nobody is opening up accounts in your name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Karin, are there any other specific scams happening in New Jersey right now that we should be aware of?
I think because of the pandemic, a lot of us are shopping online more often. And whether it's masks that everybody seems to be, looking for, or just regular items, if you want more Clorox wipes, if you are looking for hand sanitizer, there are a lot of companies that have popped up and created websites, or they will advertise on social media. And you click, you buy what you think is going to be a great deal. You give them your credit card information, and you never get the product. And because a lot of these companies are either run outside of the United States, making it really hard for authorities to track them down, now they have your credit card number. So who knows what they might do with that? And they'll have your address for shipping. So there's more private information you've given out. I would really suggest that if you are shopping online for any kind of item, go with a trusted retailer. Go with somebody that you've either done business with before or a large brand name that you've heard of. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't order something from Etsy or from a brand new company, but search online and see, put the company name or the website with the word complaints and see what pops up.
Yeah. And review, same company name reviews, usually you'll see a lot. So I think that's a great tip right now. And I know that, I'm online shopping like crazy. We're all online shopping. And I think I've said this in our Facebook Friday Fraud Fridays before. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. So, that deal for that gorgeous top, or that, those things that you need at home, that's much cheaper than everywhere else you've seen it. Usually that's a little too good to be true.
It's
that's
true.
a scam.
And there's actually been a rash of companies that I've seen advertised online, in the pop-ups that you might see in any news websites that you go to. And these are companies that are often based in China or other locations. And the quality of what people are receiving, it's nothing like what was promised.
Yeah.
And then how do you ship it back? And, will they even take the return?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're better off searching online first to see if it's a company you can trust.
Absolutely. Any other scams that our viewers should be aware of?
And now, given that the unemployment rate is so high and many people are not working in the jobs, they've been laid off and so on. A lot of people are turning to DoorDash or Uber Eats to do this kind of work, at least in a part-time, until hopefully things get better and people can get back to the jobs that they were originally doing. Make sure that you check with your car insurance company to see if your car is covered if you are doing this kind of work. Some companies will cover it automatically. Others would require you to buy a rider to get covered. But you just want to make sure that, God forbid there's an accident, something happens, your car company doesn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't cover you when you're using your car for work." So that's just a little tip. I think everybody should.
Absolutely. Have you been hearing about work from home scams as well, as these have been more people are saying?
Scams. Mm-hmm. It's something that has gone on, pre-pandemic, but now as more and more people are looking for work, they just pop up. The way that they'll usually work, you'll find maybe a job posting on a website, maybe somebody just sends you an email out of the blue, and they want you to work from home. But before you can do the job, whatever kind of job they say it is, we need to get you some supplies. So I'm going to send you a check, or I'm going to put a deposit into your bank account, let's say for $1,500. The $500 you keep for your first week's pay, and the other $1,000 you need to send to our vendor, John Smith, over here, who is going to send you the supplies that you're going to need. So you say, okay, fine. You wire the money to John Smith, and then the check bounces. So then your bank account is $1,000 or $1,500 in the negative, and you're going to have to pay it back to your bank.
And there's usually not a way to track that or find it to get that money back, correct?
It's really, really difficult, because when Western Union, nothing against Western Union, but when you wire money, it just bounces so quickly, and it's not like you can trace it in the same way as if you were using your credit card to make a payment. It's not the same kind of electronic trail that the authorities can track down. Plus, the bad guys are often out of the country, which makes it a lot harder. So, if you do look and find a job, no one's going to pay you up front. Sometimes they might need you to have supplies. I've had jobs send me a phone or a computer. They've never given me money to buy it myself. So just be really cautious if anybody gives you money before you've actually provided a service.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Karin, and thank you for continuing to stay on top of the latest scams in New Jersey. I'm always learning something new when we connect. For our viewers, if you are concerned you've been scammed, you can reach a trained volunteer at AARP Fraud Watch Network hotline, and all you have to do is call 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360. Karin, do you have any closing thoughts or recommendations related to frauds and scams that you'd like to share?
I just want everybody to remember that talking about it and asking questions, speaking to your friends, speaking to your family when you're faced with a choice to make, if you're being pushed into doing something, if someone's telling you it's urgent, you must do it immediately, take a step back, take a breath. Most legitimate companies are not going to rush you into making some sort of a decision. Go to somebody that you can have a conversation with just to make sure they're not seeing something that you might be missing if you're emotionally tied into this. And, really don't be embarrassed if you've been scammed. Report it. That's the only way that we can get the word out. You have to report it.
Absolutely. And then we can help others and hopefully try to help the person a little bit more.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Karin. After our conversation, you'll be able to find a recording of this Facebook video at www.aarp.org/njfightsfraud. Again, that's www.aarp.org/njfightsfraud. We hope that you learned something new about how you can stay safe from frauds and scams, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. And thank you again so much, Karin, for being here with us today. We really appreciate all your insights.
Thank you. I hope everyone stays safe out there.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.